Good day everyone. This video is for the laboratory exercise of Chapter 11, NAT for IPv4 for the course of Data Communications and Networking 2. On this laboratory exercise, we would be needing three routers. Router 1 and Router 2 are directly connected via serial port 000 on both ends, and Router 2 and Router 3 is connected via port FA0/0 on both ends. IP addresses are given on the laboratory exercise document, and the first thing that we would like to do is to configure the basic settings, which are configuring the host name, disabling the DNS lookup, enabling the password for the exec mode, creating a banner, creating a password for the console and for the virtual terminal lines, and then encrypting the passwords that we have set. So, okay, hold on. Okay, so let's enter the global configuration mode using the command enable followed by the config T, and then okay, so configuring the host name, disabling the DNS lookup, enabling the password for the exec mode, creating a banner, creating a password for the console, and then creating the password for the virtual terminal line, and then encrypting the passwords. So we're just gonna need to copy and paste or redo the same configurations on the routers 2 and 3. Okay, moving on to router 3. Okay, now that we have configured the basic settings or the housekeeping on each router, let's continue with declaring the IP addresses that we are using on the ports that are active on the network. So let's start with R1 or the router 1. Okay, so for the router 1, we are using the serial port 000. The IP address should be 192.168.10.1 followed by the command no shot, so that the port that we are using would be enabled. So since we have already configured the IP address, let's move on to configuring the OSPF protocol. Okay, so router OSPF 1, the network, followed by the magic card mask, followed by the network or the area, and then exit. Okay, then moving on to router 2, we're just going to do the same thing, which is configure the IP addresses for the ports that we are using. On this case, it's serial port 000 with the IP address of 192.168.10.2 followed by the command no shot, and then port FA00 with the address of 192.168.50.1 also followed by no shot command. And then the next thing that we would like to do is to configure the OSPF protocol for the router 2. So router OSPF 1, network 192.168.10.0 and 192.168.50.0, both networks are under area 0 and they have the same magic card mask, which is 0.0.0.22 or 255. Okay, now let's move on to router 3. Okay, so on router 3 we will have no IP routing, and then for that port FA00, our IP address is 192.168.50.2 followed by the command no shot, and then declaring the OSPF protocol for the router 3 with the command router OSPF 1 and the network 192.168.50.0. Okay, so now that we have configured the IP addresses of the ports that we are using, along with the OSPF, let's move on with the configuring the NAT. But before that, let's try to confirm all the interfaces and the connections if they are up and running from the router 2 using the command show IP in brief. Okay, as you can see here, the IP address for the FA0/0 and for the serial port 000 are manually up and are okay. They have the IP address on the ports that we have assigned them to. So now we can start with configuring the NAT or the NAT. So first, let's define our NAT inside and outside interfaces. So on R2, let's define the ports that are inside and which are outside. So the global configuration mode. Okay, so on this code it says that the port FA01 is inside while the serial port 000 is outside, and IP access list is standard NAT, and we're gonna use the command permit the IP address 192.168.50.0 followed by the wildcard mask, and then we need to create an access list. That these last two codes will create an access list to match the internal IP addresses. So our ACL will match the network. Okay, so after that, let's use the command. Okay, so this command, the IP NAT inside source list NAT int S000 overload, tells the iOS that any packets coming in the inside interface, which is FA00, are permitted by the named access list NAT will have their source address translated to the IP address assigned to interface serial port 000. So in addition, NAT translations will be overloaded, and that allows multiple devices inside to be translated into the same IP address. So after this configuration for the NAT on the router 2, let's run some tests on router 1. So let's use the command debug IP ICMP. Okay, so ICMP packet is debugging is on. So on R3, let's try to send a ping on 192.168.10.0, and based on the laboratory exercise document, we are expecting the sent of packet to be successful. Okay, so we had the expected output. So we will see on R1 okay, let's pass forward. Okay, now on R2, let's use the command debug IPNAT. Okay, IPNAT debugging is on. So on R3, let's try to ping 192.168.10.1, and we are expecting the packets to be successful. Okay, so on R2, let's observe the R2. Okay, so now let's try to ping and test again on the router 3 with the address of using 192.168.10.1. Okay, so as expected, now the packets that we have sent are successful, meaning that the three routers are communicating properly using the NAT configuration. And that concludes this laboratory exercise. Thank you and have a nice day.